Las temperaturas máximas hoy en San Diego, Tijuana, 73 grados, en la zona de costas 23 centígrados, 84 en los valles, 29 centígrados, 19 puertas abiertas, Garita de San Isidro, en el lado izquierdo 320 carros, derecho 110, 115 centro y 1100 peatones, 11 puertas abiertas.
The border is a part of a political agenda that will separate different cultures, societies, socioeconomic statuses, and cultures.
No wall can stand against the yearning of justice, the yearnings for freedom, the yearnings for peace that burns in the human heart.
¿Qué opina usted sobre el cerco que tenemos con Estados Unidos? En su opinión.
Mi opinión sobre el cerco. Pues mi opinión sobre el cerco es que el hombre es libre por naturaleza y todos los cercos que le ponen le coartan su libertad.
When the wall finally came down, it was their dreams that were fulfilled. Their strength and their passion, their enduring example remind us that for all the power of militaries, for all the authority of governments, it is citizens who choose whether to be defined by a wall or whether to tear it down.
Of the U.S.-Mexican border, I think of barbed wire and people with guns and people being shut out of the country.
When we welcome the immigrant with his talents or her dreams, we are renewed. As long as walls exist in our hearts to separate us from those who don't look like us or think like us or worship as we do.
Pues yo opino que no debería haber barreras entre los humanos porque al final de cuentas todos somos igual, todos somos territorios.
When I think of the U.S.-Mexican border, I think of the hundreds of immigrants who are always trying to come into the country and all the long lines that are sometimes not even ended by the end of the day and that they can't even come.
Then we're going to have to work harder together to bring those walls of division down.
¿Qué opinan ustedes del cerco?
Pues la verdad es algo un poco inhumano, ¿verdad? A lo mejor lo tenemos que hacer porque lo ocasionamos nosotros mismos en el país, pero pues igual hay que seguir buscando oportunidades. El cerco está mal, siempre ha estado mal, en nuestra opinión.
The U.S.-Mexico border goes, it's a place of conflict and it sort of separates the American culture and the Mexican culture.
El cerco que está aquí.
¿El cerco?
Sí.
Pues nada, no asegura para los Estados Unidos lo más, pero pues ahí no pasa en más.
The U.S.-Mexico border is the only border in the world where a third world country borders a first world country.
Pues desde mi punto de vista no creo que sea bueno porque pues eso separa tanto familias.
When I think of the U.S.-Mexican border, I think of really the American dream and how immigrants from Mexico go up to the United States to find work, to improve their lives.
Pues es algo injusto el dividir algo que era de nosotros, que nos prohíban entrar a lo que en un momento fue tierra de nuestros padres.
When I think of the U.S.-Mexican border, I think of the false hope and crushed dreams for people who have only known a hard and dangerous life and just want to provide safety and comfort for their families.
Garita de San Isidro, en el lado izquierdo 320 carros.
The idea of this project actually stems from the struggle that we have in teaching of how do you learn the big lessons? how would a student come back and be able to learn something at a deep level that's hard to find in textbooks and really the regular subjects of Spanish or history or English? How do you do something that actually will move a child to action? The idea of neighbors, what does it mean to be a neighbor? What does it mean to live on the border region? It's the only border in the world where a first world country borders a third world country. And we're one region. So what we're going to do is try and find different perspectives that aren't necessarily our own perspective. So we do that by not reading it in the book, by go discovering.
Esta idea nació de la necesidad de complementar dos clases que casi naturalmente fluían debido al tema que teníamos en común y tenemos en común. Parte de ese tema es la frontera.
As a social studies teacher, teaching social justice classes, I want to see if we can go beyond this idea of just learning about topics and methods and into taking action on issues. And I've come to understand that in order for me to instill my passion to my students, they have to take actions on issues. In order to do that, we have to get them out in the environment, we have to get them out of the classroom and talk with people. They talk to Border Patrol agents, talk to the founder of the Minutemen. They talk to activists that have been dedicating a big chunk of their life and to try to relieve suffering for migrants who are coming over.
This wall behind me, Operation Gatekeeper, has led to the death of more than 10,000 people. Because now what happens is people have to go around the wall. They go out into the desert, or they go through the ocean, or they build tunnels.
I've worked on the border for many years in a lot of different contexts, so it really has become for me a kind of a central grounding place. I've seen so many people at Friendship Park cry with their loved one through the fence.
And we hope that one day the world will come into one world, one table, and one Lord.
Our plan was to go down to Los Angeles and then ask for political asylum in Los Angeles.
All of this has a profound effect on the students, where they start looking at the region differently than they did before.
And I became really emotional hearing their stories, and it's just like, and then seeing them break down, like we were at dinner and the guy that was telling the story.
I have no family out here. I have no contacts. I crossed the border when I was 5 years old. I'm only 20. I've been there for 15 years of my life. Legitimately, the day I first got here, I was scared.
What fault is it of the kids that their parents ran them across the border without papers? It's not the kids' fault. So they can't go to school?
Going with Senor Gomez to the border showed me how inaccurately American media portrays life in Tijuana and other border cities like that. And being down there and seeing the people and experiencing the culture was a really eye-opening experience.
No tiene ningún costo, lo único que ocupan es su hoja de deportación, la que les dieron la inmigración, es lo único que ocupan, no ocupan dinero, y también vienen del DIF para aquí a la casa, se los llevan, les tramitan su tarjeta y los regresan aquí a la casa.
En nuestras clases usamos un tema muy controversial, le diría temas, que es el tema de la emigración, totalmente conectada con la política, con la economía cambiante de la frontera. Y el hecho de que nosotros usamos Tijuana y San Diego como un microcosmos de esta frontera tan enorme que tiene 2.000 millas y refleja todos estos cambios que ocurren.
19 puertas abiertas, Garita de San Isidro, en el lado izquierdo 320 carros derechos.
For every 33 travelers that enter the United States, it creates one job in the United States. And that is huge with regards to, especially when you think about the amount and the volume of individuals actually crossing per day, anywhere from 125,000 to 130,000 individuals per day. Do the multiplication, that's a lot of jobs, a lot of commerce building here in our area.
In my opinion is that if we're going to be a nation of laws and we're going to have immigration laws, then you should enforce those laws.
So the border rangers started putting water out of the desert, but we still didn't have a name. We were just a group of guys.
In the social justice class, we're trying to figure out not only what are the problems and solutions to suffering abroad, but we also try to make connections with what's going on in our own area in Linda Vista and San Diego, basically in our neighborhood. My expectations is that it will promote change in my history.
It's really complicated when it enters other issues of why there's so much tension between the borders.
People on the news in the U.S. talk about the problem. The question is, what is the real problem? When you hear a lot of people talk, they talk as if the problem is that people migrate. And a lot of people say that in the news, government, everywhere. They say the problem is that people migrate and they need to stop migrating because we told them not to.
Regular, the migrants get to stay here for 12 days. This is basically, we cover their basic needs, shelter, food, we give them a place to sleep.
The point of our collaboration is we'll do things together, but we'll do things not in the classrooms, but out in San Diego. And it's really been effective.
I originally came into this project to bring an art component into the other subject matters. And this works naturally just because art and the creation of art is experiential learning. Using the border as a subject matter was very appealing to me from not only an artistic perspective, but also a journalistic perspective. It's so complex that it's easy to have students go out and capture their own perspectives, whether it's environmental, whether it's a social perspective or a cultural perspective. Each and every student gets their own unique learning experience. So no matter what your background or your experience is professionally, there's always something brand new to capture.
I always wanted students to be able to feel something. Paulo Freire talks about how as we learn, we don't need to learn from this relationship between a teacher and a student, that everyone needs to learn from the same level.
What has been most enjoyable about this project is that I've been able to learn alongside the kids. The border is an ever-changing landscape, and every time you visit, there's something new to capture and learn. So no matter what your background or your experience is professionally, there's always something brand new to capture.